want to welcome you to the the Long Road Show. I always get it wrong. It's only the fourth episode, and so we're going to try our best not to fumble today. And right now, my guest today is Bill Gurney, co-superintendent of SAU 29, with the majority of responsibilities for the Keene School District.
Yes, sir.
And 3 more weeks and school starts.
The summer's just flown by. That's incredible.
Some of the kids want to get back, but I'm pretty sure the majority, the ones that are going to the pool, playing soccer and baseball, don't want to get back.
Some of their parents might feel differently.
No doubt about it. Their parents say it's been a long, hot summer.
Yep.
So we'll go right off the question that most parents go. During the summer, Tom Robillard and his people, they really bust their hump to do all the upgrades, the safety upgrades, the code upgrades during the summer. And sometimes if you go to the school, it's like, it's chaos.
Yep.
And parents really, well, is it going to get done? Is it going to get done? Tom seems to always have an ability to get it done, whether it's minutes before the kids get there. So what are some of the projects that he's really working on, important projects?
The key ones in terms of cleaning the buildings is getting the classrooms ready. Teachers are anxious to get in there right now and get started, get their rooms set up, the bulletin boards put up, especially in the elementary level. So they're anxious to get into their classrooms. So when parents, if they walk through the buildings, they'll see furniture, file cabinets, all kinds of things out in the corridor, and worried-looking employees running around, hoping it's all going to come together. So our main thing is to get the rooms clean and ready for the students, the floors waxed. Then we work on the common areas. Some of those will have been painted. Some work is being done, particularly at Jonathan Daniels, for the connections for the new heating system that they'll have. That's going on behind the building. But they're tracking in some dirt and things like that. So we want to get our projects done so that we can get cleaned up after the workmen, so that everything will be ready to open on September 1st.
Now let's go to the current middle school. Mm-hmm. We have to do a certain number of code upgrades to keep the fire chief happy.
We're okay. We did those last summer, a year ago, and we still have our restrictions in terms of number of people in the auditorium and those kinds of access areas where we're limited in having people there. But overall, we have a new fire alarm system in there that went into action a year ago, September. So all that is up to code and ready to go. Our access to the building, our ADA compliance is fine. We're not spending money on the building per se, aside from cleaning over the summer, because we're looking forward to going into a new building. So we're not going to do any investments and upgrades that we would ordinarily do in a building of that size.
And while we're at the middle school, a couple of issues that have popped up in the paper, and I know they cause you some anxiety and cause the parents anxiety, is some of the, some people call them free staters, some people call them libertarians.
Yes, sir.
But they're all citizens, and they're all exercising their right to protest and the right to assemble.
Yes.
But it's having an effect on some of our students. Some of our parents are nervous. Some of our students are nervous because we got 6th graders. That's only 10 and 11-year-old children.
We have that, and we also at that age, kids can do things without thinking, and so I worry that we have people and they're walking around with sidearms, and will a kid impulsively run up and try to grab it or do something like that? The Keene police have been great. They've been there anytime we've called. They've filled me in. I didn't understand some of the laws around being the right to carry weapons around schools in New Hampshire, and it's really pretty liberal, provided they're not causing other problems. If they were to impede the flow of students coming in and out of the building or interfere with instructions that teachers or staff are giving to the students, then there would be an issue that we could address with the police department. But as long as they're peacefully assembled and they're not encroaching on the school property, which is not the sidewalk, they can be on the sidewalk. If they were out in the street impeding the flow of our buses, again, that would be a different issue. But they've been respectful. The folks who have come down have been respectful to staff, also respectful to police officers when they've made a request. So in terms of disturbances, we have not had any. some parents have come, just as I would, and be upset seeing my child walking by people carrying guns that are not police officers. And I know my wife would be the first one to go down and complain as well. But people, for the most part, have been very understanding, and all sides have done their best to make a peaceful assembly the rule there.
And we'll take it another step. We were both 11, 12-year-old boys.
Yes, we were.
And
probably about the same time.
And then we have what's the flashing, showing the breast downtown.
Right.
And again, when you're talking about the laws, a lot of people don't understand in the state of New Hampshire, you have to show genitalia to be, what do you call it?
Lewd and lascivious
Lewd
behavior?
and lascivious behavior.
Yes, sir.
But everyone in New Hampshire has the right, male or female, to walk around topless.
Yes.
And so, again, that's a concern parents have, but there's no legal recourse.
And I'd just like to say that hasn't happened out in front of the middle school.
No, not in front of the school.
When students were being dismissed. But, and I think that's a point of the respectfulness that the protesters have shown. I know that at other times there has been that type of behavior at the common area around the circle and also on Main Street. But that hasn't coincided with our times of dismissal or the kids coming in the morning.
Where last year, the 420 movement, with some of the people were smoking marijuana at the Commons.
Yep. And that was, again, about an hour after our kids get out of school, or an hour and a half.
Now we go to Wheelock School.
Yep.
It's amazing how the grass grew out of nowhere.
Yep.
They put that sod in, and I've seen a number of parent volunteers out there watering it, because you almost lost it when we had that 90-day.
Yep.
And so the parents have been doing a great job.
Yep.
And so, again, we can't have a successful school without parent involvement.
And a great example of that is the work that's gone on at Wheelock with parents watering the sod. We also have a wonderful garden at Simons now that was a cooperative effort between the staff and the kids and parents. And the kids are eating fruit and vegetables out of there. So very exciting, and part of that back to nature movement around food and having local access to food that is important for our kids.
On the first show, we showed the progress that was going at the new middle school.
Yes.
And we're going to get ready to show about a 16-minute clip of what's happened since then. But before we go show that, Tom Romelade.
Yep.
One of the greatest finds that I think the Keene School
He and I
District
worked together years ago in Milford, New Hampshire. So I was very happy to hear that Tom was joining the staff here, and he's done an outstanding job.
I don't understand how Milford let him go. Dumb mistake on their part, because he's straightforward, he's intelligent, he knows his job, he presents it to the school board makes a decision, and he executes whatever decision that the school board makes, whether it was his first choice or his last choice.
Yeah, and he's just done an incredible job over the last 2 years of balancing multiple projects at once. The summer before this, we had the 2 buildings going up at the high school, North Campus and the Life Ed program. We had major renovations to the middle school. And still he managed to carve out enough time to make sure the regular summer work got done as well. So he's a great guy to work with. I really respect him.
Okay, so now we'll show the 16 minutes of the upgrade, and Tom Romelade and Bill Singer was out there.
Yep.
Bill Singer thinks he's a movie star now, and I know he's going to want another DVD copy of this one. Welcome to the on-site portion of the Long Road Show. My name is Chris Roberts, the host. I'm here with
Bill Sudsbury, the clerk of the works in the Keene Middle School project.
Tom Remillard, Director of Buildings and Grounds for the Keene School District.
And right now behind us, on the last time we were here, this was all trees. We had the loggers, the skidders here. And so can you now explain to what this is going to be now?
The formation of the track is starting to take place. You can see where this dump truck's running right now is going to be the center soccer field. The track running along this edge. And basically the full oval is our quarter mile track. Ditch in front of us here is being put in for a retaining wall that'll be able to hold back the banking that we're standing on. create a sidewalk down to the athletic field.
Let's go a little technical one. Is it quarter mile or is it going to be 400 meters?
It will be a 400-meter track.
Because I know that some of the high schools were saying we want 400 meters, not quarter or English standard.
Correct.
And what do you have to say about this? Last time we were here, we could smell the pine being cut, and you said it was only going to take about a week or two.
It did. It took about 4 days, 4 working days. The trees were sold for lumber. A lot of it was chipped up and sold for heat to a heat plant or an electrical plant in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And of course the archaeological dig was completed by that time, which was very successful.
Because there was a lot of concern about that. Have they any idea how long, what was the age of the materials they got?
What I've heard was about 13,000 years ago. There were Paleolithic people here that hunted and cooked on the site. And what's really amazing is the site was pretty much undisturbed for 13,000 years. It was never farmed or turned over. The garden was never worked.
So I know it's a little bit different from the middle school project, but the accepted known Indian artifacts is about 11,000 years in Clover, New Mexico, and about 7,000 to 9,000 in Kinghamton, Washington. So we may be rewriting the history books right here in Keene.
It could be. The archaeologist was very excited about his find.
I would be too if I could rediscover it. Okay? Tom, I know there had been a number of requests that they wanted to put an Olympic-sized swimming pool and create a swimming team for the high school. Is this going to be it? You're going to have an outdoor Olympic-sized swimming pool? Pretty big.
Well, it'd be a good start to a swimming pool, but actually, Chris, this is going to end up being the hole they'll be burying a 30,000-gallon tank. It's going to be collecting rainwater from the roof and the parking lots of the site. This tank and the rainwater's collection system will be used for irrigation throughout the site, athletic fields as well as around the building itself.
So, Bill, I think last time you were talking about the goal is that we'll have no runoff basically here going into the storm sewage system. So we were going to collect as much as possible to save us money, irrigation costs.
That's correct. And there's also no water from the roof or the grounds leaves the site. It's all captured either in ponds or structures on site to be used for irrigation.
And also you were talking about the quality of the soil last time we were here. Last night we had some pretty bad rainfalls, but I don't see any moisture.
That's right. We have had no problem so far in construction with mud or any delays associated with the soil here. It's so sandy the water tends to perk right through it.
So Tom, on athletic fields, so a sandy subbase is one of the perfect things for an athletic field.
Yeah, it's actually the preferred base because it could rain all afternoon and you can still play a ball game at night if that becomes the case. You want to be able to have the topsoil holding your water in for the grass to be able to grow. But once you've had enough, you want to be able to release it below. So the 8 inches of topsoil that's spec'd for these athletic fields will give plenty of root growth and be able to release any additional water that may come naturally. It will be set up with an irrigation system that'll put an inch of water per week on the fields. It should be adequate to keep the fields nice and green.
And so, but this will also reduce the maintenance cost of the fields. You won't have mud bowls like some of the other athletic fields have around the state.
Correct. And normally the downside of that is the cost of irrigation water. So we're kind of capturing that as part of the original build here so that for years to come we should be able to get relatively free irrigation water.
Okay, let's go move on to another portion of this construction project.
Excellent.
So we're in the back 40 now. We didn't come to this place last time. This was just a big pile of dirt last time we came here.
This was under construction. Foundation's since been placed. The concrete block behind us is the definition of the wood chip plant. And the SAU building, as you can see over there, is under construction.
Tom, the wood chip plant, did that have any connection with Jonathan Daniels School?
The wood chip plant will be connected via underground piping to the Jonathan Daniels School to provide hot water for the heat as part of that heating system. It also runs through gives the heat for the SAU office and travels to the middle school as well to be able to heat the middle school.
And for people who didn't get the first show, wood chip, is it going to be run year round, or are we going to have some type of alternate heating system?
There'll be a backup heating system for the summer months to be able to provide just domestic hot water to the buildings.
And so, like for example, in March, if it's 30 degrees in the morning and 90 degrees at night, that the backup system afternoon will take care of it?
Yes, both for heat as well as domestic. We'll be able to have, there'll be oil-fired heat in the other buildings to be able to take care of taking the chill off in the morning on the mornings if that's appropriate.
So that was part of this helps us get that extra 3% return from the state because it's green and environmentally conscious.
Correct. It also puts us buying a less expensive fuel, so the square foot cost for being able to heat these buildings will be lower, more than likely, than any of the other schools in the district.
Okay, and as we go around and we look, so these pipes, what are these pipes going to be before?
Those are the actual heat lines. One of these heat lines is going to feed water from the boiler plant to the middle school, and the other one will bring that water back to be reheated, similar to any other boiler system for hot water.
So we get the building and we get the other building right down. How much of a run is that going to be about?
It's about 600 feet to be able to get from boiler plant to middle school boiler room.
So a couple football fields long.
Exactly.
So Bill, what are we doing over here?
This, as I mentioned, is the framing for the SAU building. It's a two-piece building. Where they're framing now is a slab floor, that's solid concrete. And closer here in the foreground is the basement for the SAU. So half of it is a basement, half of it is a slab. It's a wood frame building, and it'll be about 11,000 square feet when it's finished.
So they're just going to put what are they going to do to cover this basement?
That'll be a regular conventionally built wood floor deck system.
And so, I'm trying to picture this. You'll have the building over there. You'll have this basement, so there'll be a way to get in the basement from underneath that building.
Yes.
And so this will be a regular deck, so if you wanted to have outdoor classes or whatever, you can go on top of the deck?
No, when I call it a deck, it's a first floor.
Okay.
It's an office building.
Okay.
Okay. So this will be a wood floor in the foreground and the concrete floor in the background.
So the one in the background will have a greater bearing capacity.
Yes.
Okay. So this can be just offices. That'll be a heavy carryover.
Right. Right.
So you can put your file cabinets or any other stuff, the heavier stuff on that side.
Yes.
Okay.
And the main interest for the basement portion of this was for record retention, to be able to have a solid dry spot that we could be able to take care of the SAU's needs for record retention.
That was one of the problems with 34 West Street. We spent up and down with money, and it wasn't always the best or the driest place downstairs.
Right. It had much more useful than not having a basement at all, but that was the reason that with the soils that we had here, it made perfect sense to be able to go subterranean rather than to add on, cover more acreage.
And by here in the basement, that way you got natural environmental cooling and keeping it warm, so you don't have to spend extra money to keep the basement heated.
Right.
Okay. And so we can just walk down here, and it's like that. It's a long run. And so yeah, we were talking about, as we were walking in here, all this is resurfaced and recycled material.
It's recycled material. What you see here, the darker base, sub-base, used to be a road that was ground up and is being reused as a base here. And then the grayer material on top is crushed stone that's processed for that application.
And so the other question, we get Jonathan Daniels. School starts in about 3 weeks. The parents are going to say, how are we going to be able to get our kids to Jonathan Daniels when school starts?
Well, they'll be able to use this road. There's an incredible amount of work that's gone on over the last few weeks. Being able to put as much as you see here, there's 3 times as much that's been buried with utility lines and so forth. But this roadway leading in will be scheduled to be paved well ahead of the opening of school.
And one other one, I know you're involved with the city for the slip lanes, for the traffic and stuff. When is that construction project supposed to stop for the people on Maple Avenue?
We're just in the throes of finishing up that planning stage, and it appears that we're going to hope to try to get some of it started this year. If it can't start and stop this year, it'll end up going till spring so that we can go start to finish on it.
Okay, so it's ready to move on?
Yes.
So here we are on the second deck of what's going to be the GNU Teen Middle School, smelling the burned rebar. So can you explain a little bit what's happening up here?
We are standing on what's going to be the floor system for the Keene Middle School. This second floor is designed to hold about 750 students. There will be walls. Right now the walls aren't constructed, obviously. The decking is getting ready to go on, and there will be concrete poured on this corrugated steel.
We were talking earlier about the classroom. Like Bill had said, about 750 students. So say Keene grows and we're going to have more students. I was told that this is more of a modular format, so you can add on to this.
There's two areas of the building that are considered clusters that would normally a cluster of 5 classrooms in each of the grade levels. They end up having multiple clusters. In order for the growth to take place, 2 of the clusters are currently going to be used as office space. They're configured so the walls can easily be removed. They can turn into classrooms, and then there's 2 wings that can be added on to the building within the confines of the road that surrounds the building, and be able to move those offices to those 2 small wings that can be added on in the future.
So we're already doing the necessary work for the future if necessary.
The infrastructure of the building is here to be able to support a total of 900 students. So cafeteria, gymnasium, office space, things of that nature, the media center are all sized to be able to support the larger number of students.
This is where I put my city councilor hat on, and for example, the Wells Street parking lot. We need new parking downtown, but we save money by not planning for the future for Wells Street, so we can't do anything with that. So the Keene School District made sure we could plan for the future so we don't have to spend a lot of extra money.
Yeah, I think we all know it's been a long time since there was a new school built in Keene. It's an important thing to be able to do all the planning ahead of time, because however we decide things are going to be, it'll be that way for a very long time.
At least 40 to 50 years.
Correct. Yep.
You were talking earlier, the circle over there, what's your build? It's going to be the clock?
Yeah, and that block wall over there where the half circle of wood is going to be a clock embedded in the wall. So obviously the wall's under construction will go up about another 10 feet.
In that area right there, that's going to be the green area.
That's the courtyard. Yeah.
That's the courtyard, so kids will be able to chill out in the courtyard and have a spot, so hopefully they'll get back to class on time.
Right, and there will be some classroom out there. I think Tom may want to speak about a rock that has been working in the kitchen.
Right. This past spring, we ended up moving what was known as the Escutney Boulder from the current middle school to Keene State College. It was a geological anomaly that took place during the glacial age. And along with that, there was a second boulder there, about 4,000 pounds worth, that had a hole, about an 8-inch hole that was worn through this boulder from the dripping water of the receding glacier. So we've removed that rock from the current middle school and have it traded up. It'll be delivered to this site within the next week and will reside in that courtyard. It's something that's used regularly in the earth sciences and so forth as part of curriculum.
And we were talking about how high are these walls going to be?
From the ground, the total wall height would be about 42 feet, which if we just saw that the gymnasium building there in the distance, would be about 32 feet wall. So each floor would be about 14 feet, 6 or 8 inches.
So basically we have about the equivalent of about a 4-story building. Right. 2 stories, but because it's a school and other spaces, it comes out about 4 stories. That's these other ones, that's going to tie in the roof system, correct?
Yes. The vertical posts you see are for the steel connections that'll form the roof after the walls are built.
And we were talking before the elevators, because we wanted to have access ADA compliant, so every student would have access. Where are the elevators going to be located at? Can we see it from here?
Well, the shaft is over there. It hasn't been formed yet, but it's in that area.
Where those cinder blocks are, that opening?
Yes, that opening right there. So anybody that's impaired will be able to come up and have a flat surface to walk on, or be wheeled around.
So Bill, since you're going to be responsible for the maintaining of this building, is there anything about this that excites you about this building?
Well, I think the durable goods that are being used, it's steel and masonry. It's not very little sheetrock in the building. It takes a little more, so the building will take a little bit more wear and tear before it needs anything to be refurbishing it. Flooring that we're looking at is going to have a much more a life expectancy than what your typical commercial building would see. And same with roofing and so forth. I think that we've spent a lot of time and effort on being able to identify a good solid structure of a building. So, and I give a lot of that credit to Frank Marinich and his team for designing a building that's going to be more easily maintained.
Hi, thank you for having me come up here because I needed to work on my tan. You were right. This reflection is really great.
That's right.
And I don't even have to pay the new 10% tan tax.
Very good.
Okay.
So now we're going to ask some of the tougher questions.
Okay.
And
I better get some water.
you know, sometimes people hate me because I ask those questions that should be asked, but no one wants to ask.
Yep.
And hopefully they don't come off as, quote, politically incorrect.
Yep.
But like we talked before, I have a degree in social science, so I want to focus on that area. The state has reduced mental health by $1.1 million.
That's right.
Especially behavioral health. And a lot of times people think that's just adults. It affects a lot of children who have maybe have emotional disabilities, emotional handicaps from divorce, death in the family, other types of trauma. How is the school district going to be able to handle or make up that lack of help that the state used to pay?
Well, in talking with the guidance counselors in our district as well as others, they feel that more and more the burden of social services is moving on to our schools. And there's going to come a point where we cannot replace what Monadnock Family Services has done. There's no way. And as you say, every issue that involves an adult also involves children, whether family members that are undergoing serious issues. That affects a child's life at home, and that comes into the schools as well, in terms of maybe lack of performance or absenteeism or any number of issues that we face. And as the state transfers that burden onto us, and therefore onto the local taxpayer, we're struggling to keep up. And one of the things we've done over the last couple of years was work very hard to improve communication between social service agencies like MFS and the school so that we're able to talk. And we put a great deal of time and effort into that. Unfortunately, we're moving to the situation where we're talking to ourselves because those folks are no longer in their positions at the social service agencies. We find that with juvenile services and other organizations where experienced folks are leaving, folks that we relied on to help us when an issue came up in the schools. Our guidance counselors are working harder. We looked at possible areas for reduction last year in our budget. One of the areas administrators felt adamant about was not reducing our guidance staff and others folks who are working with our in the social services capacity because the demand is greater. And as the economy has deteriorated, more families are going through crisis, and that's coming into our schools as well.
Because if you listen to Tom McLaughlin, the one at the police department that does
Jim McLaughlin.
Jim McLaughlin that goes, and he's caught a high number of pedophiles.
He does an incredible job.
He does an incredible job. But the sad part is he doesn't catch everyone.
No.
And so we have children who are being sexually abused and physically abused. And that takes a lot of intensive therapy to help that child. And like you said, we don't have trained people to deal that level, but they still have to deal because the state is cutting that out. And those kids may act out or have no trust whatsoever with authority. Then how do they make it through the classroom?
That's potentially true. And as you say, Jim has done a fantastic job, as well as the folks at Keene Police that support him in identifying and putting away perpetrators. And potentially some of our students have been saved from very serious issues thanks to Jim and the crew at the police department. But you're certainly right in saying that those types of issues, as well as economic issues and depression and other mental health issues, find their way into our schools every day.
And since you hit the economic issues, we will transfer right over to transition over. There was an article a couple weeks ago in the Keene Sentinel from a census taker,
Yep.
who was totally surprised and shocked because in Keene and its surrounding areas, we got a number of really wealthy families who are great benefactors,
Yes.
who have helped out and donated a lot of money, whether it's the Putnams, the Cohens, or other
Yep.
ones there's a whole bunch of others and I can't remember all their names. But basically Keene is a working class area. And he was surprised about the number of low income families that are in Keene. And I don't think a lot of people understand that.
It's true. And when you look at the value of our property and compare it across the state, we're on the low end.
Very low end.
And I don't know the numbers offhand. You may know them better than I, being in the legislature and dealing with them every day. But one of the reasons that our tax rate is so high here in Keene is that the amount of property that we have to offset the costs of our city business and our school business is minimal compared to a Nashua or other parts of the state where there's more industry and more concentration of businesses that can help support their school system.
Because when you talk about property value, places like Claremont, Berlin, Keene, they just don't have the necessary property value to compete against the other ones.
Right, and you look at Portsmouth or up to 93 corridor with Nashua and Manchester right there. There's a lot of power in those districts, politically as well as economically. And as a result, I think we may not have gotten the fair shake that we deserve over in this area.
When I was doing research on the income and the wealth in the state of New Hampshire, every single community every single county except one was 100 or below the median income. Keene was about 86% of this median income. We have one county, and I think it's Hillsborough, is 121% of the median income in the state of New Hampshire, twice as much as the lowest county, which is
And
up
that's
north.
our neighbor to the east. That's Peterborough and on up through Hillsborough.
And that also goes into, when we were talking to Wayne in our last, Wayne says we may not lose that million to million 1.3 from the state unless the state messes with it. And there's a chance they're probably going to mess it because the people like Hillsborough, they have some pretty powerful legislators. The people from Portsmouth, same thing. They don't like to have donor towns or that concept. And they're going to fight because they were kept whole for 2 years. Now they don't want to give up that money to that poor community. But the other side of it, again, the social science issue, is one of the reasons why we're getting more of that money is because the increase in free and reduced lunch students, the free of special needs students, and the increase of English second language students. And so it's one of those tough ones. We're getting the extra money, again, so people don't take it wrong, for all the wrong reasons. Because those, and I'm not saying anything negative about the kids, and I'm not saying negative. The economy is causing more to have free and reduced lunch, but the costs may far outweigh the $3,400 that you get extra for the child.
Well, you talk about filling a gap, but the reality is that it's money they've taken away that we were depending on, and now because our numbers are going up, they're going to give some of that back. But in the best of worlds, they would give us more.
They would give you more,
rather than say, "Oh, we're going to give you, we're going to give you what you got last year." At the same time, that our needs have dramatically increased, and also we've done, I think, a better job as a school district in identifying children who are eligible for free and reduced meals. And we've made that a priority. Maureen Wells in our food service department has done an outstanding job of helping to identify the families and working with our administrators to do that. But it's almost like taking with one hand and giving it back with another. That we're not, if we're lucky, we're going to be level funded at a time when our needs are rising dramatically.
One, when you talk about Maureen, Keene is one of the few school districts in the state that the local taxpayers do not fund the school lunch program.
And also the improvements in the program. So we're buying our equipment for the program out of food surplus money because of the strong management that Maureen gives to that program. We're able to buy walk-ins and major equipment that otherwise would have been borne by the taxpayer is covered by within our operating budget.
And in a few minutes, in about another minute, we're going to have what I call my jealousy 3 minutes there to interest people to dream away and hopefully plan their own vacation trip. But how did you take care of the Yankee pride? Around here, we have a lot of stubborn people who say if they're not fully employed, they don't want to get unemployment, so they're underemployed, working jobs, 20, 25 hours, no benefits, and they think there's something wrong with them as a parent if their child gets free or reduced lunch. And it's
not at all. It's the reality of the economic times. There was a time in my life when I had to rely on public support, and it managed to keep me going. And everybody should have that safety net when it's needed. It's certainly given, particularly there was a time when the economy here was booming, and anyone that wanted a job could get it, and could have a choice of jobs. Those days are gone, and I don't know when they'll come back. But fighting and now to get a job, there's intense competition. We just had an opening for an administrative assistant at the SAU office. We had close to 100 applications. 5 years ago, maybe we would have had 10. It's a symbol of the economy. And if a family's struggling to make ends meet, we want to be able to help by giving the kids a nutritious meal at least twice a day to take some of that burden off the parents.
And I think a lot of the viewers don't understand that for a lot of children, that breakfast and that lunch is really the only meal they get during the day.
Right.
And some schools around the country are actually staying open so the kids can get fed during.
They're adding on to their afternoon and doing some physical education activities and also some academic work, and then giving the children a warm meal and sending them home. And it works well for parents in some of those areas because their jobs aren't 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And the reality is that they're catching where they can a job, and so those kids are often going home to empty apartments in neighborhoods that aren't the best in terms of safety for children. So if the schools can stay open longer in those communities, provide nutritious meals, parents can have a little peace of mind knowing that the children are safe and they're being taken care of, and they can work in jobs that require odd hours and be home at the time that their children come home.
Okay, and so hopefully we'll get some of the people that will enjoy some of the sunset and sunrise scenes.
I like these photos too.
Okay. One of the things we're talking about is the grading system. People have a problem with the grading system.
I've heard that.
And I'm going to look at the grading system from a different perspective. And I'm going to, the analogy of Major League Baseball. In the baseball world, you have the Major League, AAA, AA, and A. And we all know that a 250 hitter in the major leagues is much better than a 350 hitter in A ball. And so some of the parents, some of the people go and say, well, if a kid is taking a general ed course and getting an A, shouldn't the kid who's taken all honors and AP courses get an A if the kid taking regular courses get an A? But they're different, basically really different leagues.
Right.
And they should not be dependent on each other. And so how would you address some of those issues? Because, you know what, my kid's getting a B in all AP courses, and your kid is getting all A's in a general course.
Right. Well, I think, one, colleges are smart enough to know the difference and the rigor that's involved in each course, and that the children should be measured by the standards for that course. Back in the days when you and I were in school, and when I went to teacher ed, probably as you did, we were taught the bell curve, and that it was shaped like a bell, and most of the kids fit underneath the tall part of the bell, and that was your, that's how you determine where your C's were, and then the A's and B's, and the D's and F's were the outliers on either side, and that you should have 2 A's, maybe 4 B's, 10 C's, and then the same down. And that's when everybody took the same test. Everybody, was in, and we didn't recognize and teach to the differences that children have. We now have a system that's based more upon competencies, where you determine if a child has met a certain competency. And if they have, and has satisfied that competency, then really the bell curve doesn't apply. The child's done the work, has successfully mastered the skill, has shown that they can perform the skill, and so then they move on to something else. And I know that there's been concern on the Keene board as well as elsewhere, and colleges have expressed it. And it's right through our whole educational culture. It's not just in our high school or in Keene High. And you look at the paper and you say, wow, 200 kids, got on the honor roll. But there are other people that look at that and say, well, that's quite an accomplishment. Not that, some kids are skating and some aren't. And in colleges as well. And I think the worst offender, and I've benefited from that, is graduate school. Where, if you go in and you get a B, people say, what happened? What didn't you do? So and I think that, we can take a look at reining in, if people want to call it that, the number of A's and B's that we have in our classes, in our schools. But then, our kids are competing for slots in top schools with kids from across the country. And, we can say, our teachers are harder, we give more C's than anything. But then when somebody at Harvard or at Keene State or wherever looks at that transcript and says, well, this kid is in the C's, and I can pick a kid here that's been all A's, where does that fall? I think as long as there's consistency, people understand the rules of the game and how they're being scored, that takes away a lot of the issue. We also have other tests or assessments that we can use to determine if a kid is moving on successfully, and those are as important as well. And in some ways, as we start to look at data and do more about differentiating our instruction, that data information, such as Northwest Evaluation Association testing, gives us a much better picture of where the child is, and it really falls in with where the Department of Ed is going in terms of following the child and looking to make sure that kids have mastered competencies before they move on to other subjects.
You said the word outlier. I know statistics, you know statistics. Yep. That's a completely acceptable word.
I believe it is. I meant it with no, because it's A's as well as kids at the other end of the spectrum.
A lot of people don't like it, because I think outlier is the top 2% and the bottom 2%. Yeah. And we rarely talk about the bottom 2% outlier, but there are some parents who are concerned about being the top 2%.
Yep.
And so, how many students in the middle school?
There's about 680, between 680, 720 when we open.
So say 600. So if we use the outlier, so that means 12 kids would qualify as exceptional.
Well, it's interesting because, and I know you and I have discussed this before, that your child may be very talented in mathematics,
But not in English.
and my child may be very talented in art, and someone else in writing, and so that when you start to build it, look at, what are you offering for gifted and talented programs? You're really looking at a broader spectrum of children than just that 12.
Yeah,
but statistically, you're looking at a very limited number of children at a school.
It's a rare kid that's an outlier through the whole spectrum.
Right.
But then let's look at the other side. Say even if you have 30 kids that fit outlier different parts, but then you may be looking at paying $200,000, $250,000, or $300,000 for extra teachers to take care of them. Potentially.
Yep.
But then you go and look at the fact that if I'm going to spend $300,000 for extra teachers, what is the overall benefit if you spent that for the whole school?
Right.
And
that could result in, say, reduced class size. And then that's where the differentiation and the data analysis comes in. And I know some folks tend to think that we're making excuses about our lack of a greater gifted and talented program by talking about differentiation. But really, that's in many people's minds the best way, the most cost-efficient way to deliver those services to all of the kids.
We got a few minutes left. You attended the bullying conference?
I haven't yet, but I'm going to.
Okay.
And that's, I was down at a conference that it were primarily Massachusetts superintendents because they had some topics on their schedule that I felt were important. And one of the things I got a chance to talk about was cyberbullying. And, they had, Massachusetts superintendents have been dealing with this issue in a more intense way than we have because they've had some children that have committed suicide over this. And so that they know firsthand the results of when you're not able to control this. And it brought home to me the importance for us to move forward quickly. We've tended to think of bullying over the years as something that goes on in a repeated fashion, that it's not the argument in the corridor that happens once or a threat that happens once. It's over a series of days or months or years. But that was before the advent of computers and the technology to get a message out instantly. We're in a medium here that has limited access, and we could get out a message that could embarrass a family or a child here, but getting into the studio would pose difficulties. With computers and instant messaging and all of that, all those barriers are down. And we have kids who act impulsively, and they'll put things out onto the internet, not really comprehending that they can never get it back. And once it's out and rolling, God knows where it goes. And that has major ramifications for children who are now much more potentially vulnerable to bullying than they had been in the past.
And the other part isn't just texting. You can take a picture or a quick video and send it out just as quick.
Yep, or record, with the phones that they have now.
Because on some of these new phones, we could do something if you're embarrassing or you slip and fall in the mud.
Yep.
I could take a picture of it and I can press the button and it's up on YouTube. And within seconds.
Yeah.
And so, embarrassing somebody is a form of bullying if you've done it purposely.
Absolutely. And also there's the intimidation factor of if someone has information saying, well, I'm going to post that up if you don't do this or you don't do that. So that those children are feeling pressures that didn't exist for us. And I think we could have been quicker in responding and understanding it, but it was really a cultural block for us to realize just how people could use this to hurt other people emotionally and physically, as it's turned out.
I'd hate to have a DVD full of all my embarrassing moments during my lifetime. We've all, every parent has done that.
Well, and you know, you put something up on, my children won't show me how to get on the face page and have made me promise not to look on it, but
same with
you
my
know,
daughters too. I don't
you
touch
post
them.
a picture up there of yourself, you know, having a beer or driving down the road. Somebody posts a picture of you driving down the road too quickly or whatever, and you know, a year from then you go and apply for a job, and your employer goes back and looks and says, oh, you know, maybe this isn't the person I want working in my firm because they didn't show maturity at a certain age in their lives. So not only can it hurt other people, particularly children, but it can also hurt your potential opportunities for jobs down the road. And I think our teachers are doing a great job of getting that message out. But you know, with adolescents, it doesn't always register until something happens, and then the ramifications become more evident to them.
The last question, the one that got people split, the lights and the bleachers at the alumni field. How are they coming?
They're progressing. They should be ready in time for our opening football season. Again, that's another project that Tom Remillard has coordinated for us, because a lot of the vast majority of the work is volunteer. And when you have volunteers, you're prey to their schedule as well, because they have businesses to run. So Tom has managed to keep all that going and the momentum going, so we should be on schedule. I haven't been out there. I've been away. My wife and I got away for a week last week, so I haven't been out. But before I left, they were on schedule to finish.
I heard Tom said that we may have the stanchions, 75-foot stanchions, coming in this week.
Exciting.
And hopefully, if they do come in this week, hopefully we'll be able to film them so we can show the people.
And it's a great example of something I've learned about Keene over the years, is the willingness of people to come forward and volunteer their time and effort and to raise money for kids. And you know, a couple of years ago, we were recognized by Colin Powell and his family as one of the 100 best communities to raise kids in the United States. And I think that reflects on the support here in this community. And you mentioned some of the wealthier donors, but it's really a grassroots effort as well in terms of time and labor that people give to help kids in our community.
We got less than a minute to go. And 2 weeks from now, I'm planning on having your fellow co-superintendent, Mr. Woolridge.
He's looking forward to coming.
And we're going to talk some of those in-depth race to the top, charter schools, catastrophic aid, and some of the other thingamajigs that cost a lot of money, and people try to figure why are we spending money there.
Right.
And so, I think the part about race to the top will be an eye-opener for a lot of people.
I think so too. And there's a reality that more of the grants are becoming competitive. There's less money, bigger prizes, but more competitive. And we in New Hampshire seem to be at a disadvantage when we're going after and competing against the big company, the big states.
Okay, I want to thank you for being on here.
As always, it's a pleasure.
Informative.
Good fun.
And I will give you the DVD so you can
watch
yourself as a movie star. So, again,
Refreshments provided by G. Housen Distributors. Premium beverages delivered.